So the French Africa Summit 2026, held in Nairobi, Kenya, from May 11 to May 12, was a complete and utter failure, at least in some part. France and Emmanuel Macron, who have been losing ground in West Africa and throughout Africa as a whole, or what we call Francophone Africa, is trying to clean up its image in Africa. As Emmanuel Macron said last year, that they're trying to rearrange the French president in Africa. They're trying to venture into new partnerships in East Africa. He's starting with Kenya. And we know France history in Africa. We know, remember the Rwanda genocide and the role that France played in it. But this summit was supposed to come after the failure of the Malian government, or the fall of the Malian government in the Sahel. The revolutionary government would have been toppled. There would be a huge dent to the revolution that is going on in the Sahel and in West Africa, to be exact. But unfortunately for Emmanuel Macron and the French regime and France and its lackeys in Africa, the Malian government and the Sahel revolution, the African revolution, stood and still standing. The French president spoke about the three Sahelian leaders, or the three Sahelian countries that wasn't represented at the first summit. Seems like these revolutionary countries were the main topic of the summit. France was trying to show that there was no alternative but to French to align with France. Taking a revolution or sovereignist stand is a dead end. You will never succeed. But the Malian government survived this regime change attempt, backed by, of course, France is implicated in this, and other countries and international big countries in the world. But one of the main failure of this summit highlighted in Emmanuel Macron condescending, and one would call it even racist attitude towards Africans. Take a look at this video of Emmanuel Macron yelling at Africans in a condescending, even colonial tone in a room with Africans.
Waiting your turn.
I will make order. Excuse me, everybody. Hey, hey, hey. I'm sorry, guys. But it's impossible to speak about culture, to have people like that, super inspired, coming here, making a speech with such a noise.
So yes, you see the condescending tone. It seems like it's only in Africa that Emmanuel Macron can speak to people that way. And it seems as if Emmanuel Macron never missed a chance to humiliate Africans, to insult Africans. You remember his behavior in Ouagadougou with the president at the time of Burkina Faso. You remember his degrading comments about African women giving birth to multiple children. And recently he made some racist comment about human being not having ingratitude. So therefore, I said this summit was partially unsuccessful, but there was a huge success to this. This guy cannot hide his contempt for Africa. He cannot hide the neo-colonial attitude towards African countries and African peoples. So France is trying to clean up his image, but this was a huge PR disaster. They claim that they will have some 27 billion euros or $1 billion investment in Africa. We will see where that will go. But like I said, this was supposed to come after the defeat of the Malian government, the fall of the Malian government, to show that there's no alternative but to be under the tutelage or under the domination of France. But this was proven incorrect. As a matter of fact, this would be the main theme of this summit. This would be able to highlight that these countries that have kicked France out, take back their natural resources, or in the process of taking back their natural resources, have failed. So therefore, that could not be the main theme. That would not overshadow French neocolonialism and the barbarity and underdevelopment that France have caused these African countries. Not just in the Sahel, but also in Central and other parts of West Africa, even North Africa. And we see the behavior of a lot of African presidents. The president of Kenya, of course, is a sovereign decision. He makes his sovereign decision. But it seems like many of these presidents enjoy being in this position that they find themselves. But this is a huge defeat, in my opinion. PR losing a lot of ground in the West Africa. They tried a counter offensive with these international terrorists or these mercenaries in Mali, and we see that they end up falling into a bigger trap. Terrorists are trapped, they are in cauldron, they are surrounded, they cannot hold the ground. We talk about the northern city of Kidal in my previous video, but the front line has stabilized, the battlefield has shaped. Now the Malian army and its allies are going to work. They're doing not just cleaning up in the major cities, but they're dealing with these terrorists in the right and proper way that these terrorists are supposed to be dealt with. Moreover, one of the propaganda victory was supposed to be after the fall of Mali. They will highlight that Pan Africanism is not the way to go, or the Pan Africanism that is designed by the founding father of Pan Africanism is no way to go, because Burkina Faso and Niger would not have been able to save their fellow Confederate state. And we see Emmanuel Macron would have come and say, "We are the E is the real Pan Africanist." How ironic! Because he had a speech. You can tell they probably had a speech prepared. He would have said, "Of course, I am the real Pan Africanist. Look at these guys who say they are Pan Africanists, yet still they could not save a fellow state." But we saw that this is a real blunder by these neo-colonial powers in the region. Mali has survived, Burkina Faso and Niger. They are not talking very much, but they're underground and they're dealing with these terror groups both in their country and in Mali. So the so-called Pan-Africanist Emmanuel Macron, who showed no respect, this guy take every chance he can to show disrespect to people, especially on African soil. You can do whatever you want in France, but when you come to Africa and you insult people, you tell people that you're Pan-Africanism. Do you know the history of Pan-Africanism? France is denying Africans compensation for all the atrocities they face at the hands of France, not just to mention other European powers. But yet still you claim to be a Pan-Africanist. You know the root. You come and claim that you're a Pan-Africanist because France know that Pan-Africanism, the unity of Africa, is what will be the downfall of French neo-colonialism in Africa. Pan-Africanism is the silver bullet, if I could use that term, for French neo-colonial domination in Africa. And Emmanuel Macron is trying to redefine the definition of Pan-Africanism and what Pan-Africanism is. Pan-Africanism is not just about symbolism or romanticization of issues and so forth. It is deeper. We will say it is more than skin deep. It is blood deep. So for somebody like Emmanuel Macron to claim that he's Pan-African, he's a Pan-Africanist, is completely disrespectful. And you see, they try to redefine Pan-Africanism in the sense that in the in the late 2000s, 2010, 15, to that era up to 2018, we see recently, there was a lot of so-called this new Pan-Africanists who came up in Francophone West Africa. I will not mention these names, not just West Africa, but Central Africa. You saw in Chad, you had one that claimed, well, maybe he didn't claim that he was Pan-African, he was a Pan-African, but they used the rhetoric and they tried to manage Pan-Africanism, especially in Senegal, where certain people were given the chance you know, to arrest or to contain this idea of going for sovereignty under a Pan-Africanist banner. Let's do that. You see what happened? I don't speak about the issue in Senegal, but you see the undermining of Usman Sonko, and you see who they're trying to put forward. But anyway, the youths are already determined, and we will see where this will go. But ladies and gentlemen, we just wanted to give our thoughts on the issue of the Africans of the France Africa Summit, where that was a failure. At least we had some success, and Macron could not hide his contempt for being in a room with Africans. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining this one, and we'll see you in the next video.